Welcome to our Lunch and Learn webinar titled Adapting to Innovation. Are you ready for AI? This is a 4 out of 5 part webinar series to promote student success at the institutional, regional, and national levels. My name is Allison Buckley, and I am one of 2 OER program specialists at the Southern Regional Education Board. We are so thrilled that you could join us during our lunchtime chat today. You are definitely in for a treat. If you feel comfortable, I encourage you to drop your name and your institution and the state that you represent into the chat. And while you drop that information into the chat, I will go ahead and just talk about how today will flow. So, first, we'll start out with an introduction and cover the mission of SREB. We will also discuss an AI presentation that will take about 45 minutes. And then from there, we will transition to a Q&A section for 10 to 15 minutes. And we will conclude with a survey asking for your feedback to see how we can better improve this experience. Okay. So welcome, Mindy. I'm glad that you could join us today. Welcome, Faye from Florida State. Heather from University of North Carolina System. Looks like we have OpenStax here. Thank you for joining us. So moving on, we are going to discuss briefly the mission of SREB. If this is your first time joining us today, I would like to give you some information about who we are. So we are the nation's first regional interstate compact for education. SREB was created in 1948 by Southern governors and legislators who recognized the link between education and economic vitality. SREB is a nonpartisan, nonprofit interstate compact of 16 states, and we are headquartered in Atlanta, which is where we are recording live from today. The Southern Regional Education Board works with states to improve education at every level, from early childhood through doctoral education and even through the workforce. So this webinar is brought to you by the generous support of the Hewlett Foundation. And this year, SREB is pleased to share 5 priority topics. And you may have heard this before, but our focus areas are artificial intelligence in education, career pathways, longitudinal literacy, teacher workforce, and post-secondary student success. So we are excited to announce one of our annual summits, which is the Student Success Summit, which highlights the importance of post-secondary student success. You can expect strategies and collaborative conversations to help universities improve success rates. This year, our theme is empowering every learner, unlocking student potential for economic mobility and community growth. The summit will focus on 4 pillars: access to post-secondary education, retention, persistence, and graduation to post-graduation opportunities. So I have really great news today. Our registration is open, so feel free to register today. We are also accepting proposals. If you have any proposals that you would like to submit that relate to those 4 pillars, please feel free to visit sreb.org. And now I would like to introduce our guest panelists. So we have Dr. Torre. She is a senior director of the Division of Digital Learning at the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, where she leads initiatives that provide leadership and advocacy for digital learning in higher education, including the award-winning Digital Library of Open Educational Resources, OERTX. Kyla brings to that position professional experience in education research, instructional design, and teaching. Kyla is a Spark Open Education Leadership Program graduate and was a recipient of Texas Digital Learning Association's award for outstanding commitment to excellence and innovation in digital learning in 2021. And joining her is her colleague, Dr. Singh, who is the founding assistant commissioner of the Division of Digital Learning at the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. A transformative leader, she has spearheaded initiatives such as the internationally acclaimed OER TX repository. Dr. Singh is Texas Digital Learning Association's board chair and has also served on the board for the United States Distant Learning Association. Dr. Singh was a founding member and chair of Texas A&M University System Council for Academic Technology and Innovative Education and chair of the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, Learning Technology Advisory Committee. Her work advances innovation and operational excellence in digital learning and have earned her numerous accolades. As technological advancements develop rapidly, educators are faced with challenges for how to strategically approach adapting to innovation. Here to transform how we engage with AI and evolving technologies, please join me in welcoming Dr. Torre and Dr. Singh from the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board Division of Digital Learning. And I am going to stop my share from there and pass the mics to you.
And I'll just get this settled real quick and get us going. Thumbs up if you can see my PowerPoint. Yes, I am. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is ask some sort of AI to shorten the bio. So that way it doesn't take too much time. So we'll make sure we put that on the list of things to do for the next time. But welcome, everyone. It's so wonderful to see such familiar faces, different people that we've had the pleasure of working with across the portfolio of digital learning in Texas higher education. Welcome to our presentation on adapting to innovation. We've already been introduced, so thank you so much, Allison, for that kind introduction. And we're going to jump right on in because we do realize that we are limited on time, but we do encourage you to utilize the chat. If there are questions, we'll both try to bounce back and give you some answers on those, or if there's some thought-provoking things, potential collaborations, we welcome all of that discussion in the chat. Today's agenda will really look at welcomes and introductions, of course. We'll talk a little bit about artificial intelligence, but more so focus on adapting to innovation and what that means. We'll talk a little bit about planning for institutional agility, which is going to be one of those key factors to how we approach innovation in the future, as well as looking at a framework and also the application of that framework as we begin to navigate what comes next. Then finally, we'll look at the services, resources, and programs that the coordinating board is currently putting together for AI and really focused on what comes next by bringing the Texas community and those outside of Texas together to have this discussion. We'll end with Q&A if we have time for it, but again, please feel free to post your questions in the chat and we'll make sure that we get to them. So a quick introduction for the Division of Digital Learning. We were established in November 2020 with a mission to provide leadership and advocacy for DL in higher education and promote, sustain, and advance a quality digital learner experience, positioning Texas as a world leader and hopefully resulting in globally competitive, digitally proficient citizens, which is more important now than ever. The team is a small but mighty one, and we've expanded. So we're really excited that we're now, I believe, at the 7 or 8 level, which is fantastic. We've doubled in size since we got started. I have the pleasure of leading this team alongside Kyla, and our directors include Dr. Aleda Cantu Lee, Carrie Gitz, Dr. Gwendolyn Morell, Dr. Marianne Maddox, Dr. Liz Tolman, Gaith Kajazin, and of course, our administrative assistant, Miss Amy Zandy. And that team is focused on and has been from the onset on advocacy, capacity, and recognition of digital excellence across the state. We are very fortunate that we work in an area with wonderful professionals that have been setting the standard of excellence for digital learning for quite some time, several of which are on the conversation today. And we really appreciate you all being present and really sharing your expertise with us to help us grow as a division. So let's talk a little bit about artificial intelligence. In case you didn't know, evidently today is National Artificial Intelligence Appreciation Day. Clearly, you can make a day for whatever, but today is that day. And interestingly enough, it started in 2021, not just recently. So that does give you some food for thought. I'm not going to spend time on what is artificial intelligence, as I think we've all had an opportunity to kind of dive into that. Gen AI just specifically focuses on the word generative in that some output comes from engagement with artificial intelligence, whether it be text, photos, videos, code, data, anything that is a production of artificial intelligence. So Gen AI and AI are not new. I think we're all familiar with that. It's actually been around a really long time. Just different flavors of it, different formats of it have really evolved as we go forward. Now more than ever, though, it has infiltrated the news lately. And if you look at your LinkedIn strings like mine, I'm sure every single day something new comes up about a new feature in AI, something that was propelled by AI. Different companies are popping up everywhere. You have those that were first out of the gate, like ChatGPT and OpenAI. But then you also have other companies, of course, Google Gemini, Microsoft Copilot, Anthropic that has Poe. There are so many different, Claude. Poe is out there too. There are so many different types of software, types of engines that are infiltrating the world that we live in. And keeping up with these is really difficult at times, completely overwhelming. I know that even reading through a LinkedIn string can be exhausting, stimulating, but also exhausting at the same time. And a lot of it is focused on this one technology of artificial intelligence, which is critically important. And you'll see that the list doesn't only list the engines, but it also splits it up into how you can use it, identifying the tasks that can be facilitated by this particular technology. But when you look at it, there are so many different pieces that can augment any one particular task that by the time you know it, you're engaged with 15, 20, 25, 30, 40, and the list goes on of technology. It's trending across the globe. The conversation, it's rare that you're going to have a conversation right now in higher education that doesn't talk about artificial intelligence, AI, or something along those realms. And so right now, the research is also standing behind it. There are several different topics that have risen to the top priority list for large research foundations. The Global Skills Report with Coursera, the 2024 EDUCAUSE Horizon Report, Gartner's report, all of course are talking about how much of a priority, how much emphasis there needs to be on AI as a conversational business strategy. And so there are also pieces and clusters that have arisen from these different collective research pieces. AI literacy, of course, fundamentally a critically important skill that people need to have. AI literacy and also AI fluency, which is the more extensive network of the literature itself. Ethics, of course, a prominent conversation that we need to be aware of, but also we're seeing a rise and a revisiting of the importance of digital skills, which have been around for a long time, and the importance of proficiency in digital skills. We also have those elements that contribute to successful AI infusion, which includes cybersecurity, data privacy. Risk assessment is a large conversation in all different aspects of the ecosystem of higher education. And we cannot forget and need to put an emphasis on digital accessibility with all of the rising innovation pieces that are coming. I say this because there's a lot of predictive work on where we will be in the future. And all of these pieces of information go back to the importance that and almost the charge that we have as higher education to ensure that our students are going to leave our institutions with a level of proficiency, knowledge, practical application of these different skills within the work that we do in our own environments. As you can see, the Gartner report said by 2026, 30% of workers will leverage digital charisma filters to achieve previously unattainable advances in their career. We're also seeing different words pop up like digital charisma, something that was not necessarily known or mainstream. I know I can use a lot of digital charisma when I am creating my profiles online, really highlighting those skills that maybe I wasn't in tune that I needed to bring to the forefront of what my digital profile looked like. Now that there's all of these different pieces of technology, our students need to be able to utilize AI to really have themselves stand out in a very competitive world. And it isn't just about the education piece, it's actually about the prevalence of your company, your institution in the future. Gen AI is not just about the tech. It's about a fundamental shift in business strategy. And if we approach it within that lens, we need to start having the conversation about how does this become part of the larger strategic plan for our institutions? How do we become the institution that will remain strong when all of these technologies start to infiltrate the work that we're doing? And then there's this expectation that as faculty and as instructional support partners, we're expected to not just be AI aware or AI literate, but we're expected to have one of the highest degrees of AI proficiency for a field that some of us are just beginning to dabble into. And so there is this expectation that not only do we need to be aware, we need to keep up with what is changing. We need to make sure that we understand practical use cases and help others that are learning alongside us be the expert. I'm already tired just talking about that. So I can just imagine how our faculty who are responsible for putting this into place feel. Of course, the expectation is that we need to be superheroes, that we need to thrive in an environment without fully understanding it. But in case you're feeling a little bit of deja vu right now, that's because we've been here before. We as institutions, we as individuals have experienced so many different catastrophic events over the last few years that have propelled innovation at institutions at a pace that maybe we weren't ready for. You should all be thinking right now, oh, I felt that way a couple of years ago, more than likely. And we had a pandemic that we all had to find a quick response to, a quick pivot to an environment that we did not have proficiency in. If you live in Texas, if you live in Louisiana, if you live in Florida, or any one of our other coast states, hurricanes are a very real thing. At the coastal bend, we just finished going through a very big scare. And Texas with Beryl. In addition, a couple of years ago, there was a winter storm that nearly paralyzed the state of Texas. And in all of these different instances, we relied on digital learning, we relied on each other to be able to get through it. This isn't any different. How we reacted to those situations should set the foundation for how we move forward and interact with the innovation that is happening now. We started to share in those instances. Yes, it was for survival, but we started collaborating. We didn't have the time to reinvent the wheel every single time. We needed to make sure that others look at the landscape of what was out there and really bank on those proven practices that we in Texas were very fortunate to have institutions that were extremely proficient and successful, that we started picking up the phone, that phone, and called people. We started sending text messages. We needed to make sure that we realized and leaned into the power in community, the power in open. We were fortunate again in Texas that open educational resources and this conversation about openness and sharing was already in existence, that we leaned in heavily to that to be able to now face AI and what that is doing to our institutions. So we are promoting this concept of moving forward together. We also are continuing to remind, as I have in this presentation, that we have been here before. Calculators were going to replace mathematics. Computers were going to replace people. Online gaming, no one would ever want to play against a computer. Online courses were never going to work because they never compare to face. And open educational resources, there would never be quality in a free resource. Do all of these sound familiar? These narratives that we've all had to engage in? And we clearly have dispelled a lot of that. As a society, we have evolved as much as the technology has evolved. So it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to have some fear when it comes to artificial intelligence and how it's going to revolutionize the way that we do work, the way that we approach our work. And I encourage you, don't lose the fear. Use the fear. Approach this not with so much caution, but more so with strategy. And remember that human intelligence created artificial intelligence, and artificial intelligence is there designed to augment human intelligence. So we need to start changing the narrative. We need to start looking at these types of innovations, because there will be several that will come at us at lightning speed, are looked as opportunities, not as barriers. That we're really starting to work on how do we handle adapting to the changing landscape with strategy and utility focused instead of on the technology itself. We need to really start to shift our mindset from reactive to adaptive. So, what should we do now? We need to stop focusing solely on AI and really start to focus on AI. And some of you are thinking, oh, she made a mistake on her PowerPoint. No, I'm talking about the other AI, adapting to innovation. More than anything, how we prepare our institutions to be agile enough to approach the next technology. In higher education, it does take us some time before we're able to respond to the changing climate in communities as far as technology goes. we no longer are afforded that time. We are no longer given the ability to take a year to work on the next version of ChatGPT. When we're trying to address ChatGPT 4 in a year, it'll be ChatGPT 70. And so we really need to understand that we need to design a mechanism that allows us the flexibility to respond quickly, responsibly to the next innovation that's coming. We also need a shift from the what and the why, which I think have really been explored in research and have really been talked about. What is artificial intelligence? Why is it important? We're all aware of that. We really need to start focusing now on the how. And so when we start to talk about institutional agility and how we do this, we are really promoting this framework for institutional agility that was adapted from Chan's work and WCET work. And it has this, as you can see, diagram that has these intersections between governance, operation, practice, and pedagogy, with students, staff, which include faculty and administrators, and stakeholders, which include our community and the dynamics that are happening in society, all together, completely rooted in change management and how we approach what is coming, how we prepare our institutions to understand how to read the new climate and respond to the new climate. And a lot of this, we're trying to simplify as much as we could from the institution level to the individual level, because a lot of it mirrors it. When we talk about first steps, it's assessing your landscape. Are we ready? Am I ready as an individual? When we look at governance, we're talking about strategic direction and policy and process. And a lot of that has already been done. WCET now has a database of policies that are across the nation. Several of us are having this conversation on where do we go from here, that we need to start talking to each other. Internally, as an individual, we need to start thinking, am I willing to adapt? And how much am I willing to adapt? Operationally, we need to start looking at infrastructure that we currently have in place, because we can't go and respond with new technology infrastructure every time something new happens. We need to look at what support is out there, what funding is already available that we can leverage to address these new innovations. And individually, what are my parameters and what are my resources that I have at hand to be able to start dabbling and practicing to gain proficiency for AI? In practice and pedagogy, we're talking about to what degree are we able to change? Not so much do we want to, but within the confines of policy, funding, operational frameworks, what can we actually do realistically to move forward? And as an individual, really assess, where do I begin? Is that creating a new bio for presentations? Is that using AI to get an abstract together as a starting point for ideation when it comes to new proposals? Is it to really start to look at creatively graphics and things that you've always wanted to do that maybe that wasn't in your skill set in your circle? So finding out where you are in your comfort level. So all of this is really to talk about 4 main Ps that are designed to help our institutions get a starting point for conversation. Looking at the possibilities, that landscape, what can you do? Looking at potential, what do you want to do for your particular institution, your particular business? What are your priorities? What should you be doing now? And then planning effectively. What will you do with tangible results? Yes, we'd love to address 50 different things, but what can we realistically put together? And we really leaned heavily on, as a division, what have we done that would allow us to put this framework in motion? And where have we been before to be able to employ this new adapting to innovation concept? And at this time, I'd love to hand it over to Dr. Torre, who will talk a little bit about the operationalizing of this framework and of this different adapting to innovation mindset as we approach our work in Texas. Dr. Torre?
Thanks, Dr. Singh. So yes, as we went to approach this work, oh, I think we've lost the PowerPoint, Dr. Singh. We really wanted to learn from what we've already done. We in Texas, we've had a lot of success in the area of OER and open education. It's been a long-standing movement going on, and there's been a lot of work in that area at all levels. And so we wanted to learn from that journey of building up the OER work in Texas in order to sort of inform our adapting to innovation for AI. So our OER journey was we started with landscape research. We have a biennial survey that we give out to the institutions, and we get a sort of foundation of the work that's been going on at the institutions and where they are headed. And from that, we use that to inform a lot of the work that we do, to build up digital communities of people who are doing this work, including some governance committees for various projects that we are working on. We have built numerous OER resources, including a partnership with OpenStax that we are just now publishing about 8 open nursing textbooks, and that was informed by the research that's been done. Professional learning to build capacity throughout the state in various areas that were shown within the research to be needed and necessary at institutions, and then bringing the community together in larger events like Open Texas, diving into, from the landscape research, diving into sort of smaller pockets to get a deeper dive view on things like high impact course materials or regional work being done, providing grants in order to provide support for the institutions as they go through this work, and then doing this sort of continuous feedback cycle where for all of these different resources and programs to just make sure that we are doing what we believe that we are doing. So you can see through that we really start with this sort of baseline of where are we, and we take that to go out into the various levels of sort of governance and operational and practice pedagogy, and I'll walk through how we're doing that with AI in a minute. But just to say that we are also making this our division journey. So we're using AI ourselves, sort of seeing where we are, building ourselves up through professional development and things like that, and then using some AI tools to do things like streamline our routine tasks and support creative processes that we're going through, and also enhance our digital products. You can see an example of that right here. Check out that beautiful AI generated image on that slide. Okay, so to walk through sort of our process as we're thinking about adapting to innovation and how we're using this model to do our AI work, I'll walk through the sort of levels of governance, operational and pedagogy, practical, and how those are coming into play through the AI work in Texas. So first, in governance, we already have a learning technology advisory committee that is made up of institutional representatives that informs the board. It's a long-standing committee that informs the board about policy and practice related to digital learning and educational technology. So they formed an AI subcommittee that has developed these various work streams that, based on their expertise, were necessary. First was this developing this adapting to innovation framework and giving some sort of guidelines to institutions for how to think about this, to do a landscape survey of AI policies and programs in Texas, and we've done that, and I'll give you a little bit of insight into that, to create a centralized digital presence where faculty, staff, institutional admin, everyone really can go and find resources to help them in this journey, build communities, share lessons learned, get testimonials, all of those good things. And then really just build up the larger AI community in Texas so that we are all sort of informed and learning from each other as we go through this process. We have many, many partners in this process. ISKME, I think there are a couple of ISKME people here right now, but they are wonderful thought partners and have helped us in almost every aspect of the work that we do. And so we are lucky to have them. The Texas Higher Education Foundation, which is the nonprofit foundation wing of our agency, has been helping us with some of this work. We've also worked with Coursera and Google, with Bayview Analytics to do some deeper dive research, with WCET, and you see that we have had many discussions with them through this framework as we were building on their work. And then of course, SREB, here we are, and we are both part of the Educational Technology Cooperative and enjoy those discussions very much. All right, as far as sort of rolling this out in the operational frame, we started with a landscape analysis, as I said. So we sent out a pulse survey. Basically, we wanted to make it as low barrier as possible for institutions to get this information back to us. And we got 70 responses to this. We have about 100 and it depends on how you count, but we have about 150 institutions in Texas. So you can see that it was pretty well split between 2 years, 4 years, and health-related institutions. And the answer to the questions that we posed to them was basically that, yes, most institutions, the vast majority of institutions, either have policies and or programming in place around AI, or they're in the process of developing policies and programs. So you can see there are very few institutions who said that they don't have any policies or programs, and they're not planning to develop any soon. And really, what we're seeing right now is that the policies and programs that are already in place begin with teaching and learning, as you might imagine. It's about AI use in courses and classrooms. It's about academic integrity and building student competencies. These are things like syllabus statements and looking at the academic integrity policies of the institution and that sort of thing. And then also professional development for faculty specifically. And sometimes that looks like bringing in speakers, and sometimes that looks like book clubs, and sometimes that looks like the teaching and learning office giving a workshop. But institutions are also moving towards more global use of AI and thinking about more global policies for AI. So things around student success and support, operational efficiency, and also things like data governance and privacy and all of that. And then professional development for staff so that they can use AI within their sort of day-to-day operations. And there were some sort of broad themes over all of the policies and programs that are in existence and in development, and that is that there's really a lot of community engagement and collaboration happening. So a lot of this is happening sort of grassroots from the faculty coming together and trying to address, learning on their own, and then it's sort of spread out to the rest of the institution. There's some student engagement. We have some institutions in Texas who are asking their students to teach their faculty about how they are using AI already. So that's interesting. There is this, of course, broad theme across all uses about ethical and responsible use. So that is a heavy consideration of the institutions. And then it's really moving kind of small scale at the either department or even individual faculty level, putting in a statement in your syllabus, something like that, to the institutional scale where we're thinking about governance policies and more sort of wider spread policy and practice. Okay, further along, so we have this survey that we have gleaned a lot of information about sort of the institutions, what they're doing, but also what they need in terms of supports. And as always, we are using this research to inform the programs and services and resources that we're developing. So DL Texas is our one-stop shop for everything digital learning in Texas. You can learn about all of the work that we're doing there, but this was also a site that we designed through user design research for educators, by educators, for educators. And so it has a lot of programs and services that have been developed in order to help the larger Texas community, including the work that we're doing in AI. And then we also wanted to build, so we had DL Texas already. We also had OER Texas, which is our OER repository that's been around since 2020 and now has over 600,000 users across states and continents, and many, many resources within there. But so we had these resources already, and we want to use what we already have, right? And to leverage the resources that are already available to us and are already successful and that people know about in Texas and use regularly and are familiar with and comfortable with. So as we walk along, I'll show you how we are using these various resources. One of them is that we have started a group on OER Texas that includes some open resources in artificial intelligence and adapting to innovation. And a group is a place where people can come together and have discussions and share resources and all of those good things. And that group will eventually roll up into what we call a hub on OER Texas, which is a larger digital space that can involve resource collections, communities where people can talk about lessons learned and what tools they're using and what they've liked and what they haven't liked. And they can generate conversations based on the needs that they're having at the time. They can create topic-based discussions and groups within that hub. We're also in the process, well, some things we are collecting. Part of the landscape survey was to ask institutions, so these wonderful policies, programs, these things that are working for you that you already have in place, are you willing to share them with the rest of Texas? And then, so we're in the process of collecting the things that institutions are willing to share openly, and we're putting together collections on OER Texas around professional learning content and research, open content that you can use in the classroom, and then some policy sharing and language around those types of things. So that hub is scheduled to go live, I believe, during Texas Digital Learning Week, which is a thing because now it will be the second Texas Digital Learning Week, and that it will be held in November. And we are also engaged in some professional learning, I think. So part of the community basis of this is that we are building up the larger AI adapting to innovation community in Texas and trying to connect people across the state who are doing similar things or want to learn from each other and all of those good things. So we have a series of informational webinars that are going on from tomorrow until October of this year. The first one kicks off tomorrow, and it will be a deeper dive into the landscape data that I just gave you a sneak peek of. So feel free to join us if you want to learn more about that. We also have community events, and again, to some extent, building on some success that we've already had with the DL Summit that we'll be holding in February of 2025. That'll be our third DL Summit, and this one will be focused on adapting to innovation. And that will be a hybrid event where we'll have some regional sites as well as some virtual programming. We're also going to have an AI convening fully virtual during Texas Digital Learning Week in November, and that will be free and open to anyone who'd like to come, but we are leveraging some of our institutional partners to help us build out programming for that and bring in expert speakers and think through with our Texas community how we're using AI at our institutions. And we also have an AI facilitated learning network that kicked off in June, which is it's professional learning for faculty, sort of practical use of AI in the classroom. So we worked with these institutions, Austin Community College, San Jacinto College, University of North Texas, and the University of Texas at Austin, who are all sort of advanced in their use of AI on campus, and built out some digital content within Coursera that's focused on instruction within higher ed using AI in the classroom. And then we have a cohort model. The first one, the summer cohort, kicked off in June, and there are about 200 faculty. We had a lot of interest in this, as you might imagine. So we have about 200 faculty in that first cohort, and then they are going through facilitated sessions where we're bringing in experts and having them talk to each other and also learn more as they go through the digital content on Coursera. And then Alamo College's district is also a partner of ours, and they are helping out with some of the Coursera content, but also offering this additional opportunity for those who we couldn't quite fit into the first cohort, but we're interested in the professional learning. We're offering the Google AI Essentials course to them free of charge so that they can at least get sort of the fundamentals of AI as they start to move forward with their work. And then we are building out also an open AI for higher education educators course. That's quite a mouthful. I don't know if we're going to call it that, but that's what we're calling it right now. So we're going to, with those partners that I mentioned before, those institutional partners, and also some other experts from around the state, we're going to design an open course to showcase how to implement AI within the classroom. It'll include instructional guides. We're going to have a way, as we do for our Texas Learn or our Core Essentials course, to have a completion acknowledgement. So once you finish it, you get a sort of a certificate of completion. And then we'll have a way of someone going through this, like within a platform, getting their completion acknowledgement or badge or what have you. And then also the OER components of the course will be available in OER Texas through the AI Hub so that anyone can have and share and adapt and use them as they need to. So this is how we are trying to move forward together in Texas. I think we often ask this question of the first thing that comes to mind when I say digital innovation. And usually it's things like online courses and AI, and it's the technology, it's how we maintain academic continuity when there is a disaster. It's all of these things. But what we would really like, and what we are working towards, is to have digital innovation be involved in all aspects of operations at the institutional system level, so that it's integrated into business practice. So the idea is that we are going to take this opportunity to reimagine how we educate, learn, drive change, innovate, advocate, and lead, using AI and when I say AI, I mean the framework of adapting to innovation. And that's not easy, right? It takes a lot of time and dedication and communication and resources and all of these things. It takes champions like all of you on the call. It takes you and it takes me. The change takes you and I, where you lead the AI. We're cute. What can I say? We're cute. So that's all for us, but I think we have some questions in the chat that we can answer, and our emails are there, and I'll put them in the chat too, along with some of the resources that I talked about. Okay. So Heather, the structure of the state university system and community college system. Yes, so they are all under one umbrella organization, and we are it, the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. We have a board of 9 members that is appointed by the governor, and then we have the agency, which is the commissioner who's hired by that board, and then the agency staff, and we are part of the agency staff. We are the Division of Digital Learning, or 2 representatives of it.
There's also, so to add to that, there are 7 different university systems within the state, and then there are also the 50 colleges are under the Texas Association of Community Colleges, or the TAC organization, but each one really has the independence to decide the way that they approach this work. They each have their own autonomy, and so what we've been doing is really finding out where they are and how quickly they've moved, what resources they have available, and then bringing that up to a shared resource at the state level. So we don't actually push anything down to institutions, but more so we really want to elevate the work that each of our partners has been doing, and get that out to the rest of the institutions. Hope that answers
that. Rachel, I'll put some links to content that we have available so far in the chat, and events and all of that, all of those good things. The Coursera courses are within Coursera Career Academy, so I can't share that, but we can give you kind of an idea of the topics and things that we covered and sort of the learning pathways for that.
And the wonderful part about that facilitated learning network was that our institutions really stepped up and took the topics that we had and gave practical application examples of how they're being employed at their institutions. So UT really introduced this concept of design thinking, how we ethically and responsibly interact with AI. We just had Austin Community College do theirs on this idea of creativity and how to utilize AI to be creative in your thought process, and gave some tangible examples of different software pieces that they connected to daily tasks from both faculty and as staff. So it really is bringing the conversation to the level of how to complement the why and the what.
All right, at this time, we will continue with the questions. If you have any questions for Dr. Torre or Dr. Singh, please feel free to put them in the chat, or if you would like to unmute, you're welcome to do that as well. And thank you for those of you who have already posted your questions in there. I see Kyla is responding, so should see some answers soon. So there's a question from Lisa. Are there any specific challenges that you have encountered in this AI work thus far?
Many, many. As is the nature of innovation, there are so many different challenges. But I think each individual institution is learning how to explore and address some of those challenges. I think operationally right now is a big conversation. What are those parameters? What are those guardrails for operation? What realistically is able to be deployed on campuses within the current infrastructure that they have? There's also a funding question, as always. This is something that you can approach and you can start with, but as we saw with the pandemic, there were a lot of companies that came in at a price point that was manageable, but then to scale across an entire university really became a different conversation. There are also, like I mentioned, this infiltration of different software pieces, that vetting them and understanding what is a quality resource, what is one that will address more tasks and maybe have more maximum value. Of course, ethics and responsible use of AI is definitely a challenge that we talk about. But I think one of the biggest benefits that we've seen is that our conversation is not centralized in education, only in instruction. It is actually completely branched out to look at the ecosystem approach, which includes having people from information technology, having people from enrollment management, student success, but also institutional advancement and other funding mechanisms for institutions. We wanted to bring the entire group to talk about business strategy and how to approach that. And that within itself is a challenge, being able to get everyone together in a room and really talk through some of those potential barriers to turn them into opportunities has been a challenge, but also one of the biggest assets to promoting this work.
And I'll just add, as far as what we saw in the research, like right now, it seems that institutions are very much focused right now on things like faculty buy-in and getting the expertise on campus that they need, and sort of like those very short-term sort of real urgent needs. But they're also looking towards things like, how are we going to prepare our students for the workforce, and the pace of change, and this is going really, really fast. How are we going to be able to keep up? And there was a lot of indication that they would appreciate some statewide collaboration. So I feel like that was at least good for us to feel like we were doing the right thing, moving in the right direction.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions? Lisa, I agree. I like the statewide collaboration and support piece too. What about data privacy issues? Has anything come up there?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the sort of larger ethics and responsible use piece has come up in every single conversation, every point of the data, like all over the place. Ethics and responsible use is something that institutions are concerned about, but more specifically, things like data governance and data privacy seem to be, so after the initial academic integrity policies, like getting the sort of teaching and learning policies at least going, like data privacy and that sort of thing seems to be where institutions are headed next, at least from what we've seen so far.
And to add to that, we also are trying to look outside of higher education for how our fellow government agencies are also addressing these. That is the one thing that when change hits us at such an abrupt speed, we are all feeling the same pain points. So we're all having these conversations and discussions, and they're not isolated to only one specific sector or one specific industry. And so we've been fortunate to have a strong partnership with the Department of Information Resources that is bringing together all of our government agencies to talk about use case examples of how they're employing different types of AI within their work strategically. We also have a line of communication into the governor just recently commissioned an artificial intelligence group during the last legislative session, and they're having active conversations. So we're keeping on top of that and having an open line of communication with that particular entity. So we ourselves are expanding the way that we view our work and really trying to look at the national landscape and the state landscape and the work that is being done to move things like data privacy conversations, cybersecurity and information, all of those different pieces forward for education based on the work and proven practice that other people have already done. Good questions. And while you're thinking of more, if one of the things that we truly ask from our fellow SHIOs, from our partners, from our institutions is if you have an idea and want to collaborate, or you just want to talk through some things, we would love to have a conversation. That's how we've grown so much, is finding out what other states are doing, finding out what other institutions, other systems, other community colleges are working on that has worked and that hasn't worked. Within different spaces. And so if any of you are interested in collaborating, please don't hesitate to reach out. We always look forward to those conversations and opportunities.
Well, thank you, Dr. Singh. Before we conclude the session, SREB would first like to thank you so much for sharing all the amazing work that you are doing in Texas. I love the idea of educators reaching out to the students to see how they're using AI, and the fact that you have educators teaching educators, and they're working collectively, and even having the partnerships with the business sector and being able to transfer that AI integration into the academic setting. So really love all that you're doing there. And I want to thank you again, Dr. Torre and Dr. Singh, for being here today. It has definitely been a pleasure. I am going to take a minute to share my screen to get your feedback too, to see how SREB can improve our webinar experience. So give me just one moment, and if you would, please scan the QR code if you can, just to give us your feedback, to let us know how we can continue to enhance our webinars moving forward. I'll leave that up there for a few minutes. And I will also place this inside of the link inside of the chat as well. Wait, let's see. It looks like that might have been a different link. Give me one moment and let me get the correct link for you. And I will also share our contact information. If you need to get in touch with us, please feel free to reach out to me via email or by phone. And I would just like to thank all of you for coming today. Thank you. Have a good day.